carbon capture isn't real. Wait, yes it is. Here in Switzerland, a giant new machine is sucking carbon directly from the air. Developers say the plant will capture about 900 tons of CO2 annually, or the approximate level released from 200 cars. Or how about the world's largest carbon capture plant, Orca in Iceland, designed to filter up to 4,000 tons of CO2 a year. Yes, these projects do exist and they do suck CO2 out of the atmosphere, but carbon capture, as advertised, still isn't real. Let me explain. So the Orca each year captures 4,000 tons of CO2, translating to about 11 tons per day or about half a ton per hour. Capturing 1 ton of CO2 costs 2,650 kilowatt hours, or so they say. So here's the problem. The average coal power plant spews out about a kilogram of CO2 per kilowatt hour, meaning to produce those 2,650 kilowatt hours necessary to capture 1 ton of CO2, the average coal power plant has to emit 2.65 tons of CO2. So if you run this carbon capture plant off a coal power plant, you'll capture 1 ton and produce 2.65 tons. If your fossil power plant is the cleanest type, i.e. natural gas, and is brand new and efficient, you'll produce about 1.06 tons, practically breaking even. Hang on a second, we have this thing called green energy. If we run our carbon capture plant off that, we no longer emit CO2. Problem solved, right? And no, if your energy mix contains any amount of fossil fuels, your carbon capture plant will be consuming green energy that could have been used to replace fossil fuel production. So if the carbon capture plant eats 1 megawatt of green energy, now a fossil fuel plant has to increase production by 1 megawatt to cover the whole. And you obviously can't increase green energy production at the turn of a dial. You can't control the wind speed or the sun's brightness. Okay, but what about nuclear? It's zero emission and we can increase production at the turn of a dial. Sure, but we should already be doing that. If you could turn up a nuclear power plant to cover the needs of carbon capture plants, well then why are we bothering with the carbon capture plant to begin with? Let's just turn up the nuclear plant by default to replace fossil fuel production, thereby reducing CO2 emissions. Okay, then what about a power grid that isn't connected to any other power grids and that operates on 100% renewable energy? Like Iceland, where the Orca plant is, not coincidentally. If we plug a carbon capture plant into that grid, that's absolutely a net decrease in CO2, right? No. If Iceland doesn't have enough green surplus to operate Orca, you'll have to build a solar farm, let's say, to supply it. But then why not build that solar farm in other countries to reduce their fossil fuel consumption, thus their CO2 emission? And if Iceland does have enough green surplus to operate Orca, why not just move stuff like server parks or data centers to Iceland from other countries to run them off the green surplus, thereby reducing fossil fuel consumption? And my god, we haven't even talked about things like emissions from transportation. At full capacity, the Orca plant eliminates the annual emissions of 870 cars. Do you know what else can eliminate the annual emissions of 870 cars? A couple of new bus lanes and bike paths. And you don't even need megawatts of electricity to operate those. So if you're a company interested in reducing CO2, why not just help fund bus lanes and bike paths instead? That's because these carbon capture plants are part of the same tech bro grift that has been going on for years now. I.e., you don't have to change your lifestyle. You can take your 3 kids to 3 separate trainings with your gigantic SUV 5 times per week instead of taking public transit. You can keep eating beef and similar animal products every day instead of switching to more environmentally friendly foods. Because by the power of the science god, there's this plant somewhere that sucks the CO2 you produce out of the air through the magic of science. This would be the equivalent of you taking a crap in the middle of your living room instead of walking all the way to the toilet, so some company announces a brand new AI-enhanced shit cleaner Roomba to keep your living room tidy. No, just stop shitting on the floor, go to the toilet. And if you don't have one, build one. And this is why carbon capture isn't real. And by this I mean the concept of carbon capture being a good alternative to other measures. The technology itself is of course real, it's just pointless as things stand now. Thank you for watching. If you like my content, don't forget to subscribe, and also there's a membership option on my channel, and you can also support me on Patreon if you want to support me making content like this. See you next time.